President Trump is trying to claw back $10 billion from an approved budget. This type of thing might be happening more and more. This is targeting specific programs you know, and I know. Who's it going to impact? Why is it happening? What does this mean for you and the rest of the world? Let's get into it. On Tuesday, the Trump administration sent Congress a rescission request, which basically means pulling back money that was already approved by Congress. So as a federal agency, you're sitting there, you think you have an approved budget, you think you have funds, and surprise, you don't. He wants to freeze $9.4 billion in spending for 45 days while Congress decides to cut it, change it, or ignore it. The big target here is the Corporation for Public Broadcast, CPB. And underneath there is NPR and PBS. Now, when I think about PBS, I'm thinking about the big yellow bird. That's right, Big Bird. He was the one that was teaching me the alphabet when I was about 2 or 3 years old. He was the one teaching me about the numbers, how to count to 10, how to count to 100, all of that. Now, I understand PBS only funds about 10% of Sesame Street. But Sesame Street to me was iconic. I don't know about you, but for me it was a pretty big deal. Now, what the CPB actually spends money on includes 70 to 75% grants to public stations, 15 to 20% content development, 5 to 10% on administrative and operational expenses. So he wants to pull $1 billion from there. And then the other $8 billion, you know where that's coming from? That's coming from foreign aid programs. Why? Because America first. That's why. This includes a global HIV/AIDS treatment program, U.S. aid, the World Health Organization, UN contributions, and the Millennium Challenge Corporation. But Trump's team is not stopping there. They have DOGE in full effect, trying to look for more areas they can pull money back from. Now, this is going to require a simple majority. Even though the president has a razor-thin majority in the House and the Senate, they can still get this done. And presidents have done it in the past. If you look between 1974 and 2000, presidents have requested $76 billion worth of rescissions, and Congress approved $25 billion. But to make this a reality, President Trump needs every single Republican to fall in line and vote for the party's interest. This is a little bit more difficult than it would seem because there are moderate Republicans there. They're not thrilled with having programs slashed that had bipartisan support. So this is the moment of truth. Do you stand and uphold your values and what's the best for your constituents, or do you fall in line with Trump's plan? There's also this misplaced belief that President Trump is doing this to reduce the national deficit. And really, that's not true. You know, if you look at $9 or $10 billion, that's really nothing. That's a drop in the bucket. That's less than 0.1% when you're talking about the national deficit. Same argument could be had with the federal workforce. There's so many people that are chanting and energized about reducing the federal workforce by large percents, 50%, 60, or even higher. And they're saying, look at the national deficit. It's not going to make a significant impact. If you want to make an impact, you have to focus on Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, and the national defense budget, and the interest rates that we currently have on existing debt. In the middle of those cuts, we have the White House budget asking for $45 million to keep DOGE running. DOGE is reportedly 150 people strong. Now, last time I checked, there were about 80 people, and they were even smaller than that when they first started. So they have essentially doubled in manning, in staffing. They're 150 strong right now. And they're busy. They're busy laying people off. They're busy cutting contracts, even if that means there is a negative consequence. Look at the CDC's disease tracking system. It's falling apart because of staff cuts that DOGE made. And a government worker said that key projects saving millions are stalled due to staffing gaps. A lot of people are saying DOGE does not have the authority. They want to shift the blame away from DOGE because it's really the leadership within the agency that's making the cuts. DOGE is advising. But if you know that DOGE is essentially the intent of the president, the intent of the president is to reduce the federal workforce. And despite, horrible consequences, they still want to reduce the federal workforce by any means necessary. So when DOGE says something, it's very similar to the President Trump or somebody in his inner circle saying the same thing. So you have these secretaries that are supposedly leading their agency, but they're going to toe the line. They're going to fall into line when it comes to what DOGE is recommending. They haven't even been there long enough to understand the true impacts of those cuts. So while the Trump team is busy cutting PBS, NPR, and foreign aid, they want more money in the millions to grow DOGE so that they can continue their mission. Now, if you look at DOGE, the initial goal that was stated was $1 trillion in cuts, wasteful spending, fraud, waste, and abuse. $1 trillion. But so far, DOGE has saved $180 billion, allegedly, which is 18% of their initial goal. But DOGE is by no means done. I know Elon Musk isn't around the DC area anymore, but DOGE is not done. They're going to continue to chop and slice and slash. They continue operations all the way till July 4th of 2026. So about 13 months from now. And even after that point, you could see it exist in some capacity. I know President Trump has talked in length about how much he wants to retain the members of DOGE, even with the falling out he had recently with Elon Musk. So, why these targeted cuts? Well, we're in a time right now where it seems wasteful when we're spending money overseas. If we're spending money to assist other countries, foreign aid, overseas spending, unless it's military spending, because that's the season we're in. We're in the season of military spending. So we can have over 800 military bases across the world. If we're buying tanks or jets or weapons, then that's okay. Trump's executive order in May tried to block CPB funding, arguing NPR and PBS, they push political agendas. And maybe there's a nugget of truth in that statement. If you look back, you can see, they lean a little bit left when it comes to ideology, because check this out. NPR, they've covered climate change. They say undocumented immigrant instead of illegal immigrant. They have coverage of LGBTQ issues. PBS, they cover social justice. Most of that, it doesn't sit well with conservatives. It doesn't sit well with Republicans. But there are some angry senators in the Senate. They say Trump's targeting NPR and PBS to settle political scores and muzzle the free press. There are already lawsuits being filed. And when it comes to a topic like foreign aid, when you're helping out other countries, you're doing that in part, you want to help, you're being compassionate, you're being empathetic, you're doing the right thing, but also you're building a community against your enemies. So when it comes to China, Iran, Russia, you're showing strength through unity by helping other countries. This is not a left-sided view of it. This is not just a Democrat or liberal view of the issue. This is bipartisan. You have Republicans that agree with the same thing. Then there's the OPM pay drama unfolding. Democrats slammed a recent memo from OPM's acting director that essentially gives a lot of wiggle room. They give a lot of freedom to agencies to hire Schedule C employees at the $195,000 a year cap. Schedule C is a political appointee. It's not the same as a senior executive. It's not a political SES, but it is a political appointee. Now, Democrats are saying that this could be used to reward political allies, but I tell you what, it's always been used to reward political allies. Every time that I interact or talk to somebody who's a Schedule C or a political appointee, when I conversate with them, I find out that they've helped in some political campaign. I've talked to people from both sides, both Republicans and Democrats. When you help with the campaign and you position yourself and apply, you can get a political appointee position. Now, these are at-risk positions. They churn. They churn when the administration leaves, the position is gone. But it's always been that way, so I don't see what the concern is here, except for it's a large salary, right? Because you have political appointees that can earn under six figures. They can earn $80,000, $90,000 a year, just depending on how you're bringing them in. Here's the funny thing. The Trump administration defends this move by stating high pay is important to attract highly qualified employees. They're talking about Schedule C employees, but I have to chuckle when I read this because this is the Trump administration admitting that you have to pay more to get higher qualified individuals, which of course you agree about that. I agree with that. Everyone agrees, but it's not the same energy. It's not the same tone that they take when they look at the rest of the federal workforce. When they look at all the other civil service employees, they don't keep that same energy. And why is that? What's the big difference? The big difference is one is a political ally and the other one is not. So that's the difference in pay. We're going to pay somebody so much more because they're a political ally. That's essentially what this says. If I open up last year's Plum book, I can see there are over 1,600 people that were serving in a Schedule C position. Some of these people, they have a $115,000 a year salary. Other people have over a $200,000 a year salary. Usually when there's a new administration, you'll have like 100,000 people apply and only 1,000 or so will get picked up. So there's like a 1 in 100 chance, there's a 1% chance. So if you want to try to do that, there's a lot of different websites that you could use. You can also go in on LinkedIn, you could do some networking, you can put your name in the hat and see if you get picked up for one of these positions. But you have to have the same ideology that's currently in the administration right now. You have to lean conservative, you have to lean to the right. Now, in addition to this, there was a brief RIF update when it comes to the massive layoffs. Came out a few days ago. If you're interested in that, check this video out next. Stay updated by signing up to the free newsletter down below. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.